Hello everybody. So today I'm going to talk about why I think Donald Trump is not doing a debate for the Republican primaries. So a lot of people have heard that Joe Biden is not doing a debate. He's refused to debate his fellow Democrat primary nominees, the leading candidate of whom is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And by leading, I mean he's only getting 20% of the polls, and I think Biden's getting like 60. So it's not really a very close contest. And in fact, even the best debate that RFK could hope to have is very unlikely to get him anywhere near there. But it's actually a similar sort of situation on the Republican side. Whilst Trump has a lot more opponents, at least that I'm aware of, than Biden does, he's leading them by a similar margin. It's not even close. I believe Ron DeSantis is the second candidate, and he's a long way behind. Like, it'd take a bit of a miracle for DeSantis to overtake Trump, just like how it'd take a bit of a miracle for RFK Jr. to overtake Biden. So I can't speak, well, I think I can probably speak actually as to why I think Biden's not doing his debates, and I think it's because he's terrible at debates and he's losing a lot of his mental faculties. He's making more and more mistakes with every interview he gives, every presentation he gives, every speech he gives, and he would really look terrible. And there's every chance that if he gave a debate, that even though he does have an enormous margin, there is every chance that if he gave a debate that he would lose a lot of that margin. And even if he still was the nominee, it would hamper his ability to run for president. So, you know, because there's a lot of people out there that aren't aware of how many mistakes he makes, or they think it's not as bad as it is. So that would be really showcased a lot more in that case, so that even if he did still win the Democrat primary, and I think he probably still would, it would hurt his ability in the actual federal election that would follow, whether he's against Trump, and I think he probably will be, or someone else. Which is unlikely, but it would hurt his ability to run for president. It would, you know, it might be that he'll still end up winning 60-40 against RFK, and I'm assuming RFK will remain as the second best candidate. But it could mean that instead of maybe winning 51-49 in the federal election, he might be winning, well, he might be losing. And even if he did win the presidency, there'd be a lot of question marks about him as president the second time around. I think there already are. I think a lot of people, even the first time around, thought he might die on the job, or that he might have so little mental faculties going that he'd be unable to run. Now, of course, Donald Trump himself is a similar age. He's probably physically less fit, but probably mentally more fit. You don't see Donald Trump making mental errors mid-speech and stuff. He's very clearly aware of it. But physically, he's nowhere near as fit. He's quite overweight. And we saw with the COVID-19 scare that he had, just during the last lot of presidential debates, like 3 years ago, yeah, that pretty much spelled an end to all of the other debates. But the thing is, Donald Trump has won every presidential debate, whether it's for the Republican primary or for the presidential thing, by a long way every time. Every single time. There's no question he's winning every debate. Every time he's interviews, he's slamming it. Every time he's giving a presentation or a speech, he is smashing it. He is an amazing orator. Now, a lot of people, and I remember when we had Hillary Clinton, was shocked at how good he was at debating. Even though he'd won all the Republican debates pretty easily, when he came up against her, he was shocked. She was shocked at how good he was, and she made the claim that, oh, he's just interrupting and just disagreeing with me. He's not actually winning the debate. But I'm sorry, that's not true. You know, if you're going to debate someone and you just interrupt them all the time, it doesn't work. It just does not work. So she was just lying, and obviously because she knew she'd lost the debate, and so she wanted to make that up. And then, of course, we saw that in, at least in the first debate, we don't know how the others might have gone, but Joe Biden basically cheated. He got the mediator to not be quite on the level, and yeah, and we could expect that if there had have been more debates, and there weren't because of the illness to Donald Trump, but if there had been more, they probably would have tried to keep cheating, and it was not just a debate, but a debate where someone's interrupting and then he's being accused of cheating, but then actually cheating by the other side by having a biased mediator, and it would just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And what would we end up with? I don't know. But clearly Biden couldn't beat Trump on a fair footing. I don't think any presidential candidate could. I don't think Ron DeSantis could. I don't think anyone could. I don't think RFK could. And that's the thing. So whatever you want to say about the guy, he's a great speech maker. He's a great debater. So why on earth is he giving it up? And it's not because of that. And I also wanted to add, and I know we always hear this, all roads lead to Hitler or the Nazi Party or Nazi Germany. Well, Hitler was a great speech maker, he was a great orator, he was a great debater. Didn't make him a good person. So, you know, that doesn't make him a good person. He just happens to be an amazing debater. I'm talking about Trump, although Hitler was too, of course. And yeah, he was a great debater, great speech maker. He'd never lose a debate. It's not even an issue. So given that Trump is so far ahead, he doesn't need to debate in order to win. He'll win anyway. He would only debate when he's that far ahead if he's required to. And if Biden isn't required to, then why should Trump? I don't think that's the reason. So the thing is, and a lot of people would say, the elephant in the room is that they're probably going to talk about his indictments, and it would just get messy, because then the Republican nominees would probably attack him for it, and then if they don't end up winning, and they're not going to win, it'll make them look awful, and it would divide the party. So that would be a big problem, and it might actually hurt his chances. But I don't think it would hurt his chances. Even having a divided party, even having people forced to walk back their words, you know, so probably what would happen is that they would mention the indictments. Trump would win anyway, or he'd win the debate, and then when whoever mentioned it is forced to back out of the running, they'd be forced to also retract those words, therefore making Trump look even better. And that would be probably what would happen. So that's not the risk. But the risk, I think, is what happened when we had that town hall and Donald Trump was against a very biased moderator who mentioned the E. Jean Carroll case, and he just lost it. And so he mentioned that he lost it and it was unfair and he was going to appeal, as he should have. That was the right thing to say. But E. Jean Carroll then tried to use that to, well, she's launching a second case and wants $7 million more money, or however much it was. And that would be the problem, because whilst arguably $7 million won't be that big a deal for him, you've now got criminal cases where they could say blah, 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 use it against him in a criminal case, and the case is that much stronger. And potentially what they could do, and it's not going to affect his ability to get elected, but potentially what they could do is they could silence him. Make it so that he can't make any presidential speeches, he can't have any rallies, he'll just be silenced, and maybe even forced to withdraw from the running based on the lawsuits, which I think is realistically what they're trying to ideally do. So if he shuts down the debates, he's not at a bigger risk of that. Still some risk, but not as big. And if he makes it so that he's only giving presentations, which he can then control what he says, and then talking to friendly people. Now, anybody that knows Tucker Carlson's history would know that he's actually opposed to Donald Trump. He was, in fact, not only was he personally opposed, but he was a Democrat until recently. And you might say, well, Tucker Carlson, and this came up in one of the lawsuits against Fox News, or Fox or whatever it was. He's very much against Trump, so he's not really friendly. But I guess the difference is that Tucker Carlson is honest. I don't agree with everything he said. Some of his interviews with RFK I didn't agree with, and I didn't agree with the one he had with the two now, I suppose. What were that guy's names? The misogynist guys. one that was in trouble in Romania. Definitely don't agree with what he said there. And yeah, but that's the thing. Disagreeing with a few things that he says doesn't make him a bad person. I'd say he's very honest and very good journalist, and I think that Trump can see that too. He'll get a fair hearing, and he wouldn't get that with a lot of other people. And I guess because Tucker Carlson would give a fair hearing without being biased, it actually makes it better than if he got some far right guy who's going to give him a fair hearing but be biased and be obviously biased. So Tucker Carlson has a lot more credibility than some other people that might interview him, that might also be friendly. So that's probably going to be good. Now, I haven't heard that one, I haven't listened to it. I might do that later. But at the moment, I think that would be the motive to him not wanting to give debates, because of the lawsuits. And not because it'll make him look bad, but because they could raise them in the lawsuits and turn what are pretty frivolous lawsuits into ones that, you know, could do the same thing that E. Jean Carroll did and win on not just a technicality, but by changing the law. But then once she's won, she's now used some technicalities to win more and all so forth. And people can do that in law. They can manipulate the law and use it so that, yes, they're not really winning, but then something else later on lets them win, and it's a bit of a trap and so forth. And so his best move, in light of all that, is not to have debates. He can still give speeches, he'll still give presentations, he'll still do rallies, but he'll be careful as to who he talks to, and he'll be careful about what he says. And I'd say that his lawyers would tell him that. I would tell him that if I was his legal person. I'd say, until you get into office, don't do that. Once you're in office, you smash all those lawsuits, regardless of whether they're finished or not. You just destroy them and start up an inquiry if you can as to what the hell happened. Go after the people that went after you and do all that and right the wrongs. Because right now, this is really looking like, and I think it was Nate the Lawyer, I believe, who's a YouTube guy who's also a lawyer. He's not practicing, I don't believe. But he said basically they've raised the stakes so that it's kind of medieval now. So medieval times, we didn't have a democracy, we had a monarchy. And in a monarchy, sometimes you get a situation where someone would die and there would be two candidates, maybe sometimes more than two, sometimes 3 or 4 or 5, who would fight or vie for the throne. Maybe one's the son, maybe one's a favourite, whoever, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they're fighting. Maybe 2 sons. Maybe one's adopted and one's not. And they would fight, and they'll have their armies, and whoever wins, they're king. You know, and sometimes with a whole empire. And whoever loses usually would be executed. Not always, sometimes they're put in jail. Usually in a little corner cell that nobody knows who they are. But often they'll be executed. And not only would they be executed, but so would be the whole of all of their supporter base, or a lot of them. Maybe not every single one, but let's say the top 5 or 6 lords and ladies, well, probably lords, that supported them, they would all be executed. Maybe their entire extended family would be executed, or their brothers and sisters, children, cousins, all that. So you could have 100, 200 people executed over losing. Not just the people that died in the war, but you lose, you get killed. And that's kind of what they're setting up. And for a democracy election, this is not how you're supposed to do it. I know there's corruption in a lot of countries. And look, I've no doubt there's been corruption in America for a long time, but they've been hiding it. There's no more hiding it now. Trump loses, he loses. Not only will he go to jail for life, he might even be executed, probably die in jail. His family, his supporters, all the people that had helped him out, Rudy Giuliani, all of those, they're all going down with him. He wins, none of them go down. And in fact, the ones that have gone down already, he'll release them, they'll come out. And if Biden loses, Biden will go to jail. You know? Because I think the current situation is such that, well, Hunter Biden's definitely going to jail, probably for the rest of his life. And there's enough evidence that Joe Biden was involved in it, that Joe Biden should go to jail for the rest of his life. Die in jail. So whoever loses is going to die in jail, effectively just die. And it could be all of Joe Biden's associates and so forth, all the people that support him. So whoever wins, wins. Whoever loses, everything about them is destroyed. And it doesn't really matter that right now Donald Trump is the one that's having everything destroyed. If he wins, it'll change over. All that will be gone, and Biden will have everything destroyed. So going after Trump is not just corrupt, it raises the stakes and puts them into a kind of secession wars sort of medieval thing. A lot of people say, oh, democracy is so new, it's so wonderful, it's so perfect. Actually, monarchies were better, on average. The difference is that the worst versions of monarchies were terrible, and we don't have that worst version. Well, except for sometimes we do. So the average monarchy is better than the average democracy, and one of the main reasons is because people trust the monarchy. They don't really trust the democracy, and democracies are inherently corrupt. Monarchies can be corrupt, but they're not always. They don't have to be. But this would be one of the worst versions of the monarchy, which is the secessions, the changing of power, not just a usurpation or a popular uprising, but where they fight over who gets to take over. And that's what they're doing. Arguably they shouldn't be doing that. I think term limits in American politics are stupid. Whoever's in the best should just stay until they're not the best anymore. But yeah, this is pretty awful, and it seems to be getting worse and worse. And a lot of people might say this would actually spelling the end of the American empire or the American dominance in world affairs. This is just so corrupt. And you can talk about how it's corrupt that he's been prosecuted in the first place. It absolutely is. But now he's retaliated and said, well, you're prosecuting me unfairly, I'm going to prosecute you unfairly. Got to say, well, whoever started is the problem. But there you go. And it all gets back to the fact that Hillary Clinton was a sore loser. She lost the debate and claimed she was cheated, and she wasn't. She lost the election and she claimed that Russia cheated and they didn't. And we talk about how it's bad that Donald Trump claimed that they were cheating. Well, now he's been accused of cheating. This is just bad. We shouldn't be doing this at all. It's bad, 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 bad. A lot of people, when they look back at this, if this is the end of the American empire, and I think it might well be, it might be the beginning of the end, they'll look back at that and a lot of people will blame Trump for it. But I think that might be a mistake, because I think that they should be blaming the people that didn't like Trump, which starts with Hillary Clinton, which ultimately starts with Bill Clinton, and of course his affair, Monica Lewinsky, and arguably, and I said that at the time as well, that wasn't really his fault. I mean, it was in the sense that he slept with her or whatever, but they went after him way more than they should have. And if they hadn't gone after Bill Clinton then, over the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, Hillary Clinton wouldn't have been so awful. If they hadn't gone after WikiLeaks, they hadn't, there's a whole string of things that leads to this. It's not all Democrats' fault. There's a few Republicans' fault as well. I think most people would agree that Bill Clinton sleeping with somebody, his intern, that's between him and his wife, maybe a legal system, shouldn't really decide whether or not he stays as president. That was a bit stupid. It was a bit unfair. It was a bit ridiculous. And, that's led to this. Anyway, that's it from me. Bye-bye.